Hello there, my name's Dr. Katherine Hill and I'm a lecturer here in the Nursing and Healthcare School at the University of Glasgow. Thank you for the opportunity to enable me to present my findings of my doctoral research study, which looked at the exploration of the lived experiences of clinical nurse educators facilitating interprofessional simulation-based education. One of the biggest challenges that healthcare professionals are faced with is the complexity of the current climate of the healthcare system. Healthcare professionals are under an increasing amount of pressure which can influence decision-making capabilities that can impact patient care and lead to error. Interprofessional simulation-based education is a collaborative approach to learning that enhances communication and teamwork processes, which will provide safer, more efficient working whilst providing complex care in a healthcare environment. Simulation-based education is a well established as an effective and teaching learning strategy in both undergraduate and postgraduate healthcare education. It is a unique and practical educational strategy that can recreate a realistic healthcare scenario in a simulated environment. The learners can actively participate in a guided reflective discussion called debriefing. Simulation-based education usually involves multiple participants that both actively engage in the simulation scenario itself and then those that observe the actions of the participants. All the participants, observers and faculty contribute to the debrief, thereby providing an opportunity for shared learning to occur. Simulation-based education is deeply rooted in the principles of adult learning theory and underpinned by social constructivism. It is shaped by experiential learning theory, social learning theory, and also from an interprofessional perspective, it is influenced by social identity theory. The delivery of patient care is dependent on the collaboration of multidisciplinary teams. Interprofessional simulation-based education facilitates the interaction with professional groups, lending itself as an ideal educational approach for individuals to improve on their communication skills, practice coordinated decision-making, and develop a respect for team roles. So this led me to the question, who learns during interprofessional simulation-based education? The benefits of collaborative learning, particularly amongst the participants and observers of interprofessional simulation-based education, is evident. However, there's a gap in research about the experiences of the interprofessional faculty or facilitators of simulation-based education, for example, the clinical nurse educator. This study sought to explore and to gain new insights into how and why this concept of shared and vicarious learning extends to the faculty members and a consideration as to how this collaborative teaching experience can influence both their teaching and clinical practice. My overall aim was an exploration of the meaning of lived experiences of clinical nurse educators facilitating interprofessional simulation-based education. And I also had some research questions that explored both the experiences of the clinical nurse educators and their perceptions of shared learning from an interprofessional perspective. And I was also interested as to how this collaborative teaching experience contributed to their role as a clinical nurse educator in both their clinical and teaching practices. For clarification, the clinical nurse educator is defined as a hospital-based registered nurse who has an educational and clinical remit. Interpretative phenomenology analysis, or otherwise known as IPA, was chosen as the qualitative research approach for this research study, as it enabled the illumination of the experiences of clinical nurse educators through the meticulous analysis, interpretation and validation of their unique first-hand experiences. A small purposive sample of clinical nurse educators, who were all simulation educators, were recruited. Semi-structured interviews were undertaken with the aim being to establish a rapport with the participant. In IPA, the data was inductively analysed using a systematic and step-by-step process. This enabled a detailed and intensive account that can be analysed to uncover the patterns of contextual meaning, generating themes and concepts that can be applied to the context of practice. Each interview was individually analysed with the identification of emergent themes, subordinate themes and superordinate themes, where the latter then cohere around the three master concepts. Aligning with the theoretical orientation of IPA, the depth of analysis and interpretation of findings represent the co-creation of meaning achieved through the relationship and engagement between the researcher and the participants. Three master concepts were derived from the interpretive analysis of 8 semi-structured interviews. And as you can see from the figure on this slide, these were engagement, synergy and collaboration, the power of the debrief for shared learning, and personal and professional growth. It was evident from the interviews that clinical nurse educators learned from the participants and fellow faculty members when facilitating interprofessional simulation-based education. There was a recognition of the significance and importance of working, learning and teaching together. In these final slides, I will present my findings, which are structured specifically in relation to the three main research questions. The findings of this research study presented a powerful insight into the experiences of the clinical nurse educators. One of the dominant themes peppered throughout the findings, to which all the clinical nurse educators gave clear voice to, was the facilitation of interprofessional simulation-based education cultivated a shared understanding of professional roles and responsibilities, including their respective characteristics, knowledge, skills and behaviours. Specific strategies such as co-facilitation and co-debriefing created a positive learning environment to foster the development of connections and relationships amongst the faculty and also the participants, creating value and respect within the interprofessional team. The findings also indicated the complexities that are associated with hierarchy. Hierarchical processes are important in clinical situations. However, these should not be confused with the inappropriate use of power and dominance. Interprofessional simulation-based education provided a foundation to collaboratively work with different disciplines, which enabled individuals to develop a respectful understanding of professional roles and responsibilities that are fundamental to patient safety in practice. Following on from this, individuals also often seek support from their own tribe. However, facilitation enriched the clinical nurse educators in their professional identity whilst working collaboratively within a team. The clinical nurse educators learned from the participants and fellow faculty members. There was a recognition of the significance and importance of working, learning and teaching together. Interprofessional simulation-based education created a safe space for learning that can promote an opportunity for shared learning to occur, whilst positively influencing interprofessional relationships and practices. The debrief was seen as a powerful strategy that fostered a shared learning environment through the facilitation of a learning conversation, peer feedback, and a reflexive group discussion. It was regarded as a psychologically safe container that promoted open and honest collaborative discussions, often illuminating interprofessional vulnerabilities that can contribute to breaking down of the barriers associated with any traditional hierarchy power structures. Advancing on this, faculty development activities such as the meta debrief, which is a space that empowers the clinical nurse educators to engage in a reflexive learning discussion, peer feedback, and the evaluation of their own practice supports the development of their facilitation skills. This supportive process is founded in an inclusive, honest, and constructive discussion that facilitates professional development and contributed to the building of positive connections and relationships within the team. Undertaking the role as a facilitator made a positive contribution to the clinical nurse educator's role in their educational and clinical practices, contributing to both personal growth and professional development. The clinical nurse educators regarded the participation in educational opportunities such as faculty development courses, peer feedback, and professional development activities as being fundamental to enhance the transition and adaptation to their role as an educator. Faculty development courses and the observation of more experienced simulation educators enabled the clinical nurse educators to respect the importance of developing an understanding of educational theory and adult learning strategies to facilitate a more learner-centred approach to their wider teaching practices. Moreover, this learning process enabled them to develop their professional identity as an educator, which is different to their professional identity as a nurse. In addition, the development of the knowledge and skills and experience as an educator in facilitating interprofessional simulation-based education positively influenced their clinical practice. So to conclude, whilst the findings were consistent with literature on participant learning from interprofessional simulation-based education, this research study advances on the published literature as it provides an insight into the shared and collaborative learning from a differing perspective. It reinforces the concept of shared learning, which strengthens professional practices within an interprofessional team. The development of facilitation skills provided the clinical nurse educators with an understanding and respect for underpinning educational theory that is translatable and applicable to their dual role in both the education and clinical setting. This links to the core values in the University of Glasgow teaching strategy, highlighting the importance of creating a teaching and learning environment that is shaped by a diversity of contributions from an interprofessional team to provide a collaborative and active approach to student-centred learning. Finally, I would just like to acknowledge the support and contributions of my doctoral supervisors. Thank you for taking time to listen to my presentation. My email is on the title slide if you would like to contact me for any further information.